Well, welcome to My Life in Football, and we're back again, me and Steve, and our guest today is a man that is looking forward, with his fingers tightly crossed, to step three next year, and of course that is Gary Setchell, from the manager from Bedford. And Gary, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Gary, we always start this show off with the same question, everyone. How did Gary sort of get involved in football? And how young was you when you got sort of involved in football?
Well, obviously, my grandparents and people like that say, like, ever since I could walk, I was kicking the ball. Obviously, I can't remember back then, but where I lived when I was sort of 6 and 7, we had a big green out the front. Like, obviously in the old days, everywhere had a green, didn't they? And there weren't no iPads and phones and stuff like that. Your amusement was either a push bike or football. So I got sick of falling off my push bike, so I started kicking the football around. And there used to be, honestly, from the age of 6, 7 to sort of 12, 13, there used to be like probably, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 kids even sometimes just playing football, the old jumpers for goalposts. And you'd be disappointed and gutted if your name was the first one to be shouted in, because that's getting dark, sort of thing. We just, summer holidays and everything, we just played football, and there weren't no like academies or under 6 mini soccer or anything like that then. That was literally you're straight in at under 12 level. And I can remember my first ever game, my dad took me to play under 12s game at Watlington, but I was only 8 years old, but he obviously thought I could play a little bit and I'd be good enough. And I remember him taking me to the dressing room, and I've walked in and I didn't know anyone, and all these kids are massive. And I remember just running out and jumping in the car, crying my eyes out, because I didn't want to go in there. And my dad, being like he was, he pushed me back in the dressing room and got in his car and drove off. So I had to play, and I think I played and I scored, and we won 2-1, and that was it. That was a kickstart for me.
So, what was the first sort of club you actually got involved in? Was that the first club you got involved in, or was it like a Sunday thing or Saturday thing, and then sort of went into sort of men's football after that? Yeah,
that was just youth football, and that was a Sunday. That was, used to have a Nar Valley League, and that was like the local area, and that used to be an under 12s, under 14s, and under 16s, and then the junior schools had football teams in our area. So like you could play from at junior school, I think the top age is 11. So if you was good enough, you'd get in the team at about 8. When you leave lessons early with the kit on, you think you're like king of the world, sort of thing, because you're getting out of lessons early to go play football. And then we played under 12s. You'd have a great year as the oldest one in that, and then the next year you'd be in with the older boys and get put in your place, and then the year after you'd be top. And then sort of when we got to 16, obviously Kings Lynn Youth, if you was any good, you'd get offered down to Kings Lynn Youth for a trial, and if you was good enough, you'd play in the under 18s in the Floodlit Youth League.
Do you remember those days? What sort of days when you was youth? Do you remember any sort of funny things happening to you in them days with the youth games that you came?
Yeah, we just, obviously Kings Lynn's quite that's a big town, but it's quite a small town. So like all the lads, we always used to get on, and that was in the years where you could finish a youth game and pop into town on a Thursday night. So we used to, although we was only 17 and 16, we used to be able to go out after the games and stuff like that. But I think we actually had a really good team, and the managers were great, and Steve Tyers and Fred Raspberry, and obviously Fred's passed away now, bless him. But we had a real good team in them days. That was a pathway into getting into reserve team football, and then a pathway into getting in the first team if you was good enough. Where obviously a lot of clubs have moved away from that now, because the best youngsters, if you like, at 7 and 8, they get picked up by the centre of excellence, the academies and things like that. So you actually lose grassroots, lose the best players, sort of thing. So you then get them back to sort of like your local level. If they don't make it at a pro club, then they sort of filter back down the down the leagues. Like everyone eventually finds a level, but them youth team days, you know, to pull on the Kings Lynn shirt at 17 for me was, you know, being a Kings Lynn lad and the family come to watch that. They was probably arguably the best days of your life football wise, because that is when you're not playing for financial reasons. You're just playing because, you know, you love football and you love competing. And, you know, the higher you move up the leagues, which I eventually did, you know, the more pressure there is, you know, the harder you have to perform. And, you know, although that's a brilliant life, that is a lot tougher than what people think it is. That ain't just not at sort of lower like League Two conference level, League One. That ain't all Ferraris and, you know, Louis Vuitton. That's just, you know, you still have to get up and basically you're going to work to earn a living. Basically, you're earning a living to pay the mortgage, pay the bills, and everything else.
Did you find that in those days though, that, I mean, I live in Kettering and I know how long it takes to get from Kettering to Kings Lynn. I've done it on a Saturday morning in the Junior Premier League, taking teams up to there. Did you find that it's a lot of travelling around your neck of the woods for games?
Yeah, I've had it both ways. Obviously, I played for Kettering as a non-league footballer, and obviously I was travelling there twice a week, obviously under Peter Morris training. And then I've had it the other side when I've eventually went into managing at Kings Lynn. We're trying to attract players to get there. You know, you felt you was always paying a little bit more than what you should be for players because of the travelling. Because really, where we live, you've only got like one side. The rest is all water around us. So there's only like 2-3 roads into Kings Lynn, and you know, Peterborough's probably the nearest big place. That's 35 mile away. You got Norwich 50 mile away, and then everything else is absolutely miles. So,
and that one horrendous road.
Yeah, the A47, A17, or whichever one you use. But like I say, there's been a lot of good players in Kings Lynn who have not made it because of where we live. There's been some wonderful footballers in Kings Lynn, but you know, I had a little bit. I'm not saying I was the best player from Kings Lynn, even at my age, in my age group or anything like that. And the lads I played with in Sunday football, we had some brilliant footballers, but they never had the sort of drive or determination get themselves out there and try and play at a high level. They was happy either playing with the mates or picking a few quid up locally. But I wanted to try and play as high as I could.
I mean, we're getting into in the first. I mean, what division were Kings Lynn in at the time when you managed to get your debut there?
When I was 17, John Gidman, can you remember John Gidman? He played for Man United and Everton. He come in as a bit of a maverick, really, at Kings. Then he come in, his long hair, a little bit like, you know, poor man's Jimmy Savile, really. He was literally, you know, he was larger than life character, ex-Man United, ex-Aston Villa, ex-England. And we'd done a training game with the youth team versus the first team. And he just, one day, I was a left winger then, believe it or not. I've played a number of positions, but I was a left winger then. And he just pulled me in on a Thursday, said, "You're coming with the first team on Saturday." He took me with the first team. We stopped off for pre-match. He told the waitresses to sit down. They're having a day off. Made me serve all the boys tea and toast, which I'll never forget. And then he got to the ground and he started me away at Racing Club Warwick, and that was with that. I just thought I was going. Well, on the way, I literally thought he took me there as a waiter just to serve the tea and toast. And I ended up playing. We won 2-1. And I never looked back, really. That was just the lucky break that night on the training ground, him being there, me playing well that night. And then, you know, he's giving me opportunity and I really liked it. And, you know, I wanted more of it. And, you know, I started working as hard as I can. Unfortunately, he weren't the best manager that we'd ever had. And, you know, he got the sack shortly after. But by then, I'd scored a couple of goals that season and not established myself in the first team at 18 or anything like that. But I was a first team squad member, if you like.
I think John Gidman was one of those sort of top players who didn't probably understand what non-league football's about, isn't it? There's been quite a few of those, isn't there?
Well, there still is. You're still getting now, just not ready for the level, which is, you know, a lot of a lot of non-league management is man management. You know, you've got to understand the players, understand they work, figure a way out how to get the best out of them. You know, try not to complicate the game too much. You know, work harder than the opposition is you know, if you work harder than the opposition at any level, you'll always have sort of half a chance. So, you know, that's something that my teams have done since I've gone into management, and something perhaps, you know, John Gidman's teams didn't do when we played for him.
I mean, you mentioned one who I mean, I knew quite well for many years, Peter Morris, and you know, he did understand non-league football, and he understood what non-league football was about. I mean, yeah, he built some good sides, didn't he, to be fair?
Yeah, well, he after John Gidman, we had Tony Godden come in, the old goalkeeper, and he brought a lot of ex-pros in, and probably over-the-hill players on over-the-hill money as well. And you know, there was one or two of us younger lads. He sort of sidelined us a little bit, and went with the older pros, and then, you know, I think we finished 4th or 5th bottom in the Beezer Holmes League, or whatever it was then, Beezer Holmes Midland, I think it was. This was '94, and then Peter Morris come in in the summer. He called me in his office. He offered me a contract. He said he'd seen me play previous. He said he was going to build a team around me. I was only 19 at the time, and he gave me a great run. You know, me and Peter had some, shall we say, ups and downs over there.
Yeah, it can be a bit of a miserable part.
I think he sacked me 3 times and signed me 4 times. That's how our relationship went. You know, I had a great season that season. I think I scored 12 goals from left wing, and we come second to Nuneaton that year and got promoted into the Southern Premier. And then, you know, me and Peter had words, shall we say. Then I moved on to Wisbech for the following season.
So when you moved on to Wisbech the following season, was that a higher level, lower level than what you just got in there with Kingsley?
No, that was step 5. That was like, we just got promoted to step 3, and that was a drop down to step 5. But Wisbech was a good club, and basically Peter Morris he basically said in the paper that he'd retained everyone that he wanted to retain, and I hadn't spoke to him, so that wasn't as easy in the old days. And then I signed a 1-year contract with Wisbech, and he's rung me up as soon as it got announced and went, "What you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I've just signed for Wisbech." He went, "Well, we wanted you to sign here again." I said, "But you hadn't spoke to me." He said, "Well, I thought you knew." So I went to Wisbech and actually asked if they could cancel my contract, and they declined. So I wouldn't mind, because I knew the manager at Wisbech, Jigger, and we had a great season. We got to the first round of the FA Cup from step 5, I think we beat Chelmsford and Hitchin and teams like that on the way. We drew St Albans in the first round proper, and we narrowly lost 2-1 at Fakenham Park in front of 3,500 people, which was, you know, an amazing day. And, you know, even to this day now, like Wisbech and Kings Lynn in front of a full house, they are, you know, they're memories that'll stay with me for a long, long time, because that was proper, that non-league packed ground. You know, you can't beat that feeling of playing in front of them if things are going well for you.
Yeah, they're actually, I mean, I've played there myself, and I've been there a few times. I mean, they're a club that really, if they did well, they'd be really well supported, because they are a traditional club, aren't they? They're an old traditional club.
The trouble with Wisbech is they moved away from Fakenham Park. The money was mismanaged there, something chronic, and they got themselves in a lot of debt. And the only way out to make the club survive was to sell the ground, which they've done. And they've built a new ground, which I've managed that, which was tough. You know, you just didn't get that. Even when we had a good run in the FA Vars when I was managing, you know, you could only get 600-700 down there. Where in the old days that would have been 2,000. So, you know, it's a shame. But, you know, they're still going. They're step 4 now, and, you know, hopefully they can get out of the relegation this year and then go again.
So, I mean, with Wisbech, I mean, you know, you say you had a great cup run there. I mean, how many years did you just stay just for the 1 year, or?
No, 1 year, and then went back to Peter Morris at Kings Lynn. I think that was in 96, 97. We wanted to try and push for the playoffs, but again that year that was a stop-start year for me personally. I didn't play as much as I felt I should have done. I think we finished mid-table. So in 96, 97, the end of that season, I think I left in the January to go play locally at Fakenham because I was doing a lot of travel and not getting many minutes. And at the end of the season, Peter then said to me like he was going to give me a good crack the following season, and that just didn't happen for me. We was playing a different system, so then I went and signed for Fakenham on a 2-year deal under a lad called Mark Barham, which was quite local to me as well. So I just wanted to get back. I'd had the few years early in my career where I really enjoyed it and was flying, and then I had the year at Wisbech where I played really well, and I just had 2 years stop-start. So I just wanted to get my head down, start enjoying football like I used to. And I think I was 23 at the time. I signed a 2-year deal at Fakenham. I don't know what they was doing, giving out contracts step 5, 2 years, and then that was the turning point for me. That was my springboard to, show people what I could do. Out of nowhere, the manager said, I was a winger then predominantly, and he said, I'm going to play you up front. And first year I scored 28. In second year I got 49 and won the Golden Boot. So I had 2 terrific years there. We narrowly missed out on promotion, finishing second in the league to Wroxham twice. But obviously Wroxham didn't ever go up, so they was in the league the next year. And obviously that then I got a very strange phone call one Sunday afternoon after that season from my old mate Peter Morris, and the rest is history.
And that, I mean, for people who don't know, I mean, when you say history, was that off to Kettering?
Yeah, I was playing step 5 at Fakenham, and Peter had just got the Kettering job, and they just finished again, and they just finished second in the conference to Rushden that year. No, to Cheltenham. Well, in Cheltenham, they might have finished second to Cheltenham. Kettering had, and he just rang me and just said, "Look, I hope you've grown up." Basically, I think I was 23 at the time. He said, "I hope you've grown up. I feel that you can play at this level. I've watched you a couple of times this year. Come over and have a friendly against Bristol City." And I literally just hummed and hard because I loved my football at Fakenham, but I didn't want to be a big fish in a little pond sort of thing. So I eventually decided to go. So I went over to Kettering that Tuesday night. We played Bristol City. He started me sort of left wing, and I scored one and I set one up, and we won 2-1. And he offered me a year's contract after that game, which was like obviously a lot more money than what I had been earning from step 5. And I was fully committed to it. And then I played the rest of pre-season, had a decent pre-season, and obviously Kettering, they was getting like 1,000 people for the friendlies and things like that. That was unbelievable. So I went to my first game. That was against Northwich Victoria at the start of the 99 season. And I remember getting in the car after the game, and I just thought, I'm so far out of my depth here. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I played some lad, I don't even know his name. He gave me a torrid. I just, when you feel, I just felt out of my depth. And I went and see the manager on the Tuesday at training, and went, I just felt out of my depth. I was quite honest with him, because that sort of, not upset me to the point where I was, I just thought, how am I going to bridge this gap from step 5 to step 1? And he just reassured me and said, you'll be fine. He dipped me in, dipped me out. But I never played up front again, ever in my life. From that 49 season, I never, ever played up front again. He played with wing back. So because I played at left wing for him, and I'd never really been much of a defender, but he just played me wing back. And obviously the defensive side I really struggled with. So as the season went on, he dipped me in, and by November, I was flying. I was playing every week. I felt great. I bridged the gap quite quickly, and I felt like even then at that point, I felt like I could be a good player at this level and maybe even kick on even further, because that was just a confidence thing, because I weren't used to the level. And going into that dressing room, who had some great lads like Matt Fisher, Craig Norman, a couple of lads I played at Lynn with, Brett McNamara and Lee Hudson, Phil Brown. There was some Carl Shutt. There was proper big players. And I suppose at first I was a little bit, rabbit in the headlights of all these great players and players I'd seen playing and, reading about and stuff like that. So come Christmas, I was a regular in the team. We was in the FA Trophy sort of last 16. So we had a chance to get to Wembley, and we was floating around top half in the league at the time. And, that half a season, that back end of that season was probably up there with the best, one of the best half a seasons that I had in my career.
Was that frustrating? When you say that you're playing up front, you've got 49 goals, and then all of a sudden you're playing left wing. I mean, was you sort of a little bit frustrated that that you weren't going to get a chance to play up front?
I was, and that was. I went to see him a couple of times, and he did throw me up there once or twice late on when we was chasing the game. I didn't really do anything. Obviously, the defenders they're men, aren't they? They're proper defenders at that level. They like step 5 defenders who you couldn't give these boys a yard and end up getting through on goal. That was at step 5 you could, but that was a little bit clever, a little bit cute. I read the game a lot better. So, are you there?
Yep, still there. Right.
So obviously that was quite tough for me. So obviously the more I played left wing back with being able to see the bigger picture, that just worked out great for me.
So what made the change then from there to, I'm assuming is it the original Rushden and Diamonds that you moved to?
Yeah, well I just had I remember we went to Rushden because we went in February or March, we got to the semi-finals of the FA Trophy, and I scored the winner in the semi-final to get us to Wembley. So we went to Rushden just after that, and I remember having one of the best games of my life. Probably we did actually lose 3-0, but I'd never give in. That was the type of player. I kept trying. I was working hard. I put my body on the line, and we ended up losing 3-0. But the manager of Rushden was the commentator. Brian Talbot was the commentator when we played Kingstonian at Wembley, and obviously he watched the game, and obviously he'd seen me play against him, and I just got a phone call the following Sunday after the Wembley game, just saying could I go meet him at Rushden and Diamonds. And obviously everyone knew Rushden and Diamonds were massive at the time, absolutely massive. So that was a no-brainer for me. I went and met him. That was full-time football. I'd never been a pro. I was 25 at the time, and I absolutely, I couldn't turn it down. That was going back and playing on them greens all them years ago, jumpers for goalposts. That was just a dream to become a professional footballer. And obviously that was tough because I made some great friends at Ketra, and me and Peter Morrison eventually, got an understanding where, I think he always had a soft spot for me, and obviously I did him, but that was real tough to break away from that, although I knew that was the best decision for my life and for my career. So I didn't go down very well with the Kettering fans after, scored.
I was just going to say, one of my best friends in football was Carl Alford. And he did the same move, and he was never forgiven, basically. And it was always
but they got 85 grand for him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But he still never bought a drink, mind you. But,
no. But that was. I remember seeing the thing on the back of the Evening Telegraph saying "hero to zero" with a big cross on my face. I thought that's a little bit harsh.
Yeah, but I'm afraid you're never forgiven if you make that move down the A6.
Oh no.
So what was the day like? The Wembley day? I mean, talk us through that.
Unbelievable.
I was there.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Obviously, the whole experience, like the build up was great. I just got to plug my charger in. The build up was great. The week we'd done it all properly. They took us away for the week, and they're just the nerves building up to the game. You go to Wembley the day before just to have a look around the pitch, and that's so surreal. And then obviously when we was driving up to the ground, obviously Kettering, I think we took 14 or 15,000 people that day. And like you just see red and black flags everywhere. And then obviously you walk on the pitch before the game and you see your family and friends, and then you get that nervous reality setting as you was walking across the dog track. You just literally, I was just concentrating on putting one foot in front of the other, not having that you being framed moment where you just veer off and sort of collapse in a heap somewhere. So that was sort of like just a surreal moment. Then I remember the first 3 minutes I hadn't touched the ball, and I was thinking, I've got to touch the ball in a minute, I've got to touch the ball in a minute, I've got to touch. And then in the end, the ball came and I touched it, had a touch. And that's just another game then. Red hot. I think that was about 80 degrees.
Yeah,
so
wasn't that the last one at the old Wembley, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the third last game. The third last game at the old Wembley. Yeah. So yeah, that was a great experience.
Should have won that.
We should have. We 2-1 up with 15 minutes to go. We should have won it, but we didn't, and that was heartbreaking. I've never cried after a football game, but if I was, that would have been the closest one. Sitting on the pitch watching them go up the steps and pick the trophy up, that was heartbreaking, because we had give ourselves everything, but because Peter Morris's team were very front foot, I just think, we were fit, we were super fit, and we just burnt ourselves out in the heat. We weren't great at keeping the ball. Everything was without the ball. And with Kingstonian, to be fair to him, passed us off the pitch. And in that last 20 minutes, we was on empty, and we could have done better with a couple of them goals late on, but I think that was just fatigue. I think if it went on any further, they'd have ended up going 4-5-2.
So you moved on after that season onto Rushden and Diamonds. That must be always one of my sort of favourites. What was that like walking into there? Didn't they have like some kind of a stunning entrance hall when you walked into the ground? Am I right in saying that, where it was like chandeliers and marble?
Yeah,
yeah. Highbury.
Yeah. No, that was unbelievable. Like the training centre was, Brian Talbot literally had got the plans off Arsenal, what theirs was. So that was identical. We had 3 training pitches that were just a joke. And when I say joke, they was as good as Wembley. Our main pitch is probably the best pitch I've ever played on. That was outstanding. And you got treat like royalty. You walk in, you got all your training kit laid out, from your pants, your socks, everything, your towel, your flip flops, your robe. You go upstairs, you used to have your breakfast, then you'd come down, you'd go out and train. All your boots would be laid out for you. Go put your boots on, you'd go out and train. You'd come in, and there was a little room to the right that you chucked all your dirty kit on. Your robe would then be back in that room that you put on. You'd go have a bath, shower, massage, whatever. And then you'd go upstairs and your lunch would be ready for you. They had a weights room in the training facility. And, they were so far ahead of the time, and that was too much. Let's be fair, that was too much. But I couldn't get my head around. I was a lad from non-league football, and that was my first pro club. And you'd get some of the pros moaning because they had to do a double session or something like that. And that was unbelievable. That was the 4 years I had there, and the promotions we had was, they were again great times, and not only great times, and obviously Rushden was spending a lot of money, but we probably got on as lads, probably the best of any set of lads in the league. We had that mentality. We'd done a lot of stuff together. We'd done a lot of like golf, snooker. We had days out, after training and stuff like that. That was a proper. Brian Talbot was very old school. We worked hard and we played hard, and he was all for that. And in the first season there, we ended up winning the conference. Premier to get to the Football League. I think I had 31 starts that year. So from 18 months, me thinking I weren't good enough to play at that level, all of a sudden I've played 31 times, 31 starts and then 2 sub appearances in a championship winning team, which was unbelievable.
What a tragedy though, Gary, isn't it? That you've got Nem Park, a lovely, fantastic stadium like Nem Park, Kettring's Ground, Rockingham Road, and you add on to that in the area, Rothwell Town, where I was a manager, and all 3 grounds have gone.
Yeah,
all 3 grounds are gone. And I mean, it's an absolute tragedy.
Yeah, the first 2 you mentioned, the Rockingham Road. I was working in Kettering this week. I actually went past Rockingham Road, and there's just like the bowling alley's still there, but it's just diggers and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And honestly, every time I go past Rushden, that put a lump in my throat. I ain't lied to you. That ground was unbelievable. Even my new partner, who I'm with, like I've been with 5 years, like I took her to the site where Rushden, we was going by that way, and I went, this is where the ground used to be, and that is just, honestly, that leave a lump in your throat, that really do. But the times we had there, Max Griggs was an unbelievable chairman, Brian Tybalt was an unbelievable manager. You know, the players were, you know, people like Paul Underwood, Billy Turley, Justin Jackson, Dwayne Darby. I mean, what a team. Sean Carey, Ray Warburton, you know, the list, Jim Rodwell, the list is endless.
What actually went wrong to be where we are today with them?
Well, that's a bit of a funny one, really, because after we won promotion to League Two, you know, we signed a few lads, and like an Andy Lowe, who was like Jamaica's record top goal scorer at the time, you know, Paul Hall, you know, we used to call them the Reggae Boys. And then we signed Barry Hunter, and, you know, everything was getting crowds of 5,000. And we sort of stuck with a side that got promotion. We was floating about sort of mid-table, and then we made 3 or 4 signings, and, you know, the gaffer just said, look, you know, we're going to have a go for it. And we managed to creep into the playoffs that year, mainly because of an Andy Lowe's 27 goals. He come in at about September, October. He scored 27 goals before the end of the season. Wouldn't train, turn up on a Friday, lay on the massage bed. And that's got a funny story, really, because that got to like about February, and I think his loan thing was up, and the gaffer called us a meeting without him. And he said, look, I hate what he does. I hate what he does. I hate what he stands for. But if we let him go, we finish 10th. If we keep him, we finish in the playoffs. He said, but I'll let you decide that. And he left the room. So basically, we had a meeting and just said, well, he's got to stay, in he? But Brian Gaffer was saying, look, but no one else's standards drop. This is a one-off. So he could basically do what he liked, train on a Friday, lay on the treatment bed, then he could score a hat-trick on a Saturday. And the rest of us would run the knackers off all week. But that was man management. He managed him, and he managed the rest of us to work around him. And, you know, we got to the playoffs, that finished in a defeat at the Millennium Stadium at Cheltenham. And then the year after, we then won the League Two title.
Yeah, I mean, basically, in a nutshell, the Diamond situation finished when Max Chris poured his money out.
Yeah, well, that year we won League Two and got promoted to League One. We actually won it outright last game of the season. And obviously we all went away. I think we went to Jamaica that year. We had a couple of trips to Marbella, and we went to Jamaica that year. And when we come back, obviously we all had our meetings. And I think that was already in place then, because I got released along with 3 or 4 others. And the gaffer said, look, I'm not replacing you, but you'll see what's happening at the football club. And lo and behold, within 3 months of the next season, the gaffer had gone to, I think he went to Oldham or Oxford, maybe Oldham, I think. And the club just basically disbanded. Max moved his business abroad, and that was just nosediving from there on in. You know, that was badly managed. The fans voted with their feet, because obviously Max had put them all out of work, because in Rushden, Earthland Borough, he employed basically half the town, and they weren't going to go watch his football team. when he's put them all out of work, sort of thing. So that was a big community revolt, if you like, and the club was no longer backed by a multi-millionaire, and that was no longer self-sustainable. So, you know, that obviously went the way, unfortunately, a lot of football clubs do.
So, I mean, after that, I mean, you moved on, according to what I've got in front of me, you went to Tamworth?
Yeah, I went to Tamworth, yeah. Yeah.
Bit different?
Yeah, very. The thing is with Rushden, when I remember driving out the ground that day when I left, and I think I was 28, 29 then, and you just know that you're not going to get another club like this. I was offered a couple of York City offered me something, and Chester offered me something, but that was, you know, nowhere near feasible for me to go to any of them two places with cost of living and stuff on the money they was offering me. So my other option was to go back to what I knew, which was part-time football, and Tamworth was still National League, but they was part-time. So I decided to go the part-time route and get myself, you know, back into work, and that's the route I went. But there was a lot of things went on in my life at that period where football had sort of like, you know, took secondary status to me, and I'd never really got going at Tamworth. I had a few good games, but never really hit the form that I had at Rushden. And by the Christmas, we shook hands, and I went back to home to Kings Lynn, and, you know, got another promotion there and really enjoyed it there under Tommy Taylor.
So, I mean, how does that affect a player mentally from going into being, like, you know, like Rushden and Diamonds, you're playing full time,
Yeah,
and then you have to go, you know, one day you're living your life as a footballer and all the rest, and then the next day you're having to go, you know, and find yourself a job, and then going back to that. How does that affect you, you know, and does that put you in good stead with some of the management positions that you've had with some of the players, especially like you've got ex-professionals in your team at the moment?
yeah, I think that's tough, and I think not necessarily for like what my situation was, because I was late in the game, so I'd already lived 6 or 7 years in the real world, if you like. But there's not enough that, I mean, some of these kids who sort of like are in these academies from 9, 10 years old right through to 18, they might get a first year pro, and then they get released, and they got no idea about, you know, real life, if you like, to put it bluntly. And, you know, you get lads coming to, you know, when I was at Kings Lynn and at Bedford, and, you know, they've just been released from a, you know, conference academy, and, you know, they think, or League Two academy, they think they're just going to walk into a conference club, and that's such a harsh reality for them to real football, the real world. And I just think there's not enough aftercare. And even for pros, like, say you've been a pro and you're a hot property, and you know, you're playing the championship, for example, for 2 years, and at 21 you get a bad injury. What you got to fall back on? There's just not enough care or aftercare. And, you know, there'll be loads of footballers. Some footballers go on and they have their own businesses and stuff like that, but there is a lot who suffer, you know, obviously with mental health. I think there's obviously back in 2004, 2005, when I finished at Rushden, obviously mental health wasn't as on the scene as what it is now, if you like. And I think there's been obviously many a footballer, many a sportsman who, you know, you look at even great sportsmen, people like, you know, even Ricky Hatton and Gazza and people like that have hit rock bottom because they can't get that same, I don't know, buzz, if you like, that they had as a professional sportsman. And I think there's a lot of, you know, ex-football league players, not necessarily the Premier League ones, but lower league ones, who earn enough money to retire, who have then got to go in the real world and find a job. And, you know, that was funny when you find a job, because I did literally just go get a job at a local warehouse and thing, and like, you was playing for Rushden 3 months ago, what are you doing working there, sort of thing. And that was just a little bit weird, a little bit strange, a little bit odd. But, you know, you have to do what you have to do to, you know, pay your bills and stuff.
So you went, you said Tamworth for a bit and then back to Kings Lynn. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah.
Going back there, back there again? Was that the same?
Brilliant. I think I was a bit more appreciated because obviously when you're a local lads seem to get all the stick, if you like. That don't never change at any football club at any level. You know, you get a youngster come through, you build him up, and then when they have 2 or 3 bad games, he ain't no good. And you know, when you come back after being a pro, winning the conference and winning League Two, and you know, I had a Wembley appearance under my belt, all of a sudden people think you're actually probably better than what you really are. So, you know, that I really enjoyed it. We had a great time under Biff and Booney, and then Tommy Taylor come in, and again, I had another good season under him and won another promotion. And then obviously I went to AFC, all the ownership and everything changed at Kingston, and I went to AFC Sudbury, where we had another great season that I enjoyed. Not a great season, but a season that I enjoyed.
Who was the manager at Sudbury then?
Gary Harvey, his name was. Very, very nice bloke, very wealthy bloke. We lost in the semi-final of the FA Bars that year, which well, the team we lost to, we'd already beaten 3 times that year. It was horrible. So that would have been the first ever game at the new Wembley, which I really wanted to. So I would have had the old Wembley, Millennium Stadium, then new Wembley on the CV, but we lost in the semi-final, and I don't think that actually got played there in the end because that was obviously late getting built, so which would have been an absolute sickener. But I had a really good time there, lovely people. The travel was just a bit too far for me.
I was just going to say that's a hell of a journey.
Yeah, but that ain't so much the mileage. That was more the route. That was, you know, I was leaving at 4:30 to get to training for 7. You could do it a lot quicker coming home, but you know, the roads are terrible. Obviously, traveling 70, 80 miles through Bedford Forest in the winter ain't much fun on your own, especially if you break down. But yeah, so that was, I'd done a year. I had a good crack at it, and that was probably my last real sort of shindig, really. That was my last year where I trained properly, kept myself half fit, and then I went to Swaffham Town, which was a league below Sudbury. There was a guy there who, you know, he was desperate to get promotion. He signed me. We got the promotion, and I had two seasons there. Enjoyed it, but that was a lot less pressure. That was more local football, and then I got offered the assistant manager's job at Wisbech, and obviously took that after there, and I think that was 2008. So I think I was 33, player assistant manager. It was.
So you got into Wisbech, and then, you know, I mean, did you move up from assistant manager to manager, or did you go to Kings Lynn as manager there?
No, the manager at Wisbech one day just didn't turn up. Literally didn't turn up. He just didn't turn up. No one knew where he was. No one had heard from him. Steve Taylor, his name was. And the chairman come to me and said, will you take over for today? And we was actually at Wroxham, who had won the league, and we got a draw 1-0, and I shouted a little bit on the touchline and marched up and down and thought, you know, I quite like this. And they offered me the job. Obviously they got rid of the lad. I was probably not ready. I was 33, but I played under some good managers, so I knew how like try and get the best out of players, and you know, I wasn't scared to stand up in front of the boys and give a team talk. I'm quite confident like that. And Wisbech just moved out of their ground. They was waiting for the new one to be built, so we was literally playing on a park. We had hardly next to no budget. We was playing in the competitive league, and I think I lost my first 6 games, like as a manager. And I was thinking, this isn't for me, this. But the chairman was great. He kept on, now you're doing well, the team are trying. And I finished that season, and then the next season I sort of built my own team, and we was in top 4 or 5, like from nowhere. We were just organised, hard to beat. And my ex-manager at Lynn, Kevin Boone, he rang me and said, Kings Lynn are reforming. I'm going for the job. I'd like you to come with me as joint manager. So, you know, that was a privilege, like a huge, that was a huge honour for me to manage my own my own hometown, and we'd done it as joint managers for the first season. We built a team at Step 5. Obviously, they'd been relegated from the Conference North to Step 5. So although we had a Step 5 team, we was winning, we were still getting Step 3 gates because, you know, I think that was 8 or 6, 7 quid or 8 quid to get in, and we were top, and we was getting gates of 800, and, you know, we got 105 points in the first season, didn't win the league. Simply it's got 106, I think. But we got the semi-final of the FA Vars in our first season. Ended up losing it.
How did you get on as a joint manager? I mean, I've tried it once, and I must admit, I found it really hard, because if you've been a manager and then all of a sudden you're a joint manager, whereas you make all the decisions, basically.
Yeah.
I found it really tough.
Yeah, anyone who knows me knows me how hard, because my voice was going, my partner, bless her, just bought me a drink. Knows me, know that weren't me. I didn't like it. Yeah. But the guy, Kevin, he was a friend of mine, and he brought me in. So we got on well, which helped. I was his captain when he was manager before. He was joint manager before. He'd never been a manager on his own. He was always a joint manager because he could see a player, and he knew how to set a team up, but he weren't brilliant at delivering the stuff to the player, whereas I was the ex-pro, confident in the dressing room. So I do all the team talks. We do everything together, but I do all the team talks. There was no real final say. We did disagree sometimes, but I found it very, very difficult, and sometimes you wanted to make one change and he didn't fancy it, or he wanted to make a change and you didn't fancy it. And just for me, it don't work. I'd never do it again. That's something I'd never do again. And I'd never be a number 2 to anybody. So that's either until I get sacked or retire, and then obviously I'll be a number 1. But Kev left sort of like at the start of the next season to personal reasons, and they let me do it on my own. And that year we got 106 points out of 120 and finished second to Long Buckby. But we did get up on the points per game second, and that's when my management career kicked off, really, because we went to Step 4. We won the league at Step 4 in the first season. We got to the last 16, the FA Trophy from Step 4, beating a Step 1 and 2 Step 2 teams on the way. And then obviously went into Step 3, which was our level at the time with the budget we had, and we had a one season where we flirted with relegation a little bit, and then, you know, we had 2 solid mid-table stroke 8th to 10th seasons, and then unfortunately for me, which fortunate for the club or whatever, we had a change of ownership. The new chairman come in, Steve Cleeve, Buster Chapman left, and, you know, he promised me a lot, Steve, but didn't really deliver too much for me. And then I actually went in to sign a contract on the night he sacked me. I thought I was signing the contract, which we'd agreed. And then when I turned up to sign it, he actually gave me the boot. So that was the end of my tenure at Kings Lynn.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. He did bring a couple of security guys in with him on the night, to be fair.
But I mean, was you part? Did you bring was you part of Kings Lynn when they came down to play a game pre-season at Hart?
Yeah, in the Joe Cup. Yeah, I was manager then.
Yeah, and
I was also part of the one that beat you 1-0 in the FA Cup when we had a couple of lads sent off.
There you go. Everybody beats us. So there you go. So from there, though, I mean, then went back to, again, almost like putting your slippers back on again, and went back to Wisbech.
Yeah.
I mean, what was
I weren't. Honestly, I was so, again, not heartbroken as I wanted to like cry my eyes out, but I was so I was gutted that I had to leave Lynn. So I think at the time we was doing okay. Obviously, when I left, the new manager, Culverhouse, he got a much better budget, and the players I wanted to sign, there was players that I tried to sign, but I could never afford them. But Steve would give him a lot bigger budget than what I had, and fair play, they made the most of it. They won step 3, which I thought they probably would, and you know what they've done in the Conference North was nothing short of sensational, really. You know, that was one of them freak seasons where you get the bounce from going up, and they just rid the wave, and that was unbelievable for them, and that was a great season. Obviously, I've got a couple of them boys now in Alex Street and Rory McCauley who play for me now. And they do bring that winning mentality to our team, as well as Rennie and people like that. But just going back to Wisbech, yeah, I weren't looking for anything, and they'd lost 4 of the first 6, and that same chairman was still the one that kept putting his arm around me, going, "Yeah, you'll be all right, you'll be all right." Sort of 8 years later, he's rung me up and sort of basically called in the favour for me, him not sacking me out of 3 games and me never being a manager ever again. So he's called that favour in. I said, "Look, I'll come in and we'll give it a go." And I went in, and they had a good group of players, and you know, again, we just got the dressing room right. I think we went 21 games unbeaten when I first arrived, and we got promotion. We were 17th in the league when I took over, and we ended up getting promotion on the second last day of the season, which was brilliant. We was disappointed not to win the league, because we had to win the last game of the season to win the league, and we drew 1-1, which was a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, considering we went to Daventry on the Wednesday night and beat them away from home, and then they come down with half a side on the Saturday, expect them to get tanked, and we fluffed the lines, drew 1-1. You actually win the league, but promotion was already secured for both of us.
What about from there, though? I mean, you've gone to where you are now at Bedford. I mean, that must be frustrating, though, because, of course, you joined there in 2020, and of course, then it's been sort of like 2 seasons or a season and a half where, you know, where you've sort of get started and then you've had to stop. So has that been difficult as a manager? And secondly, you've put together, you know, at Bedford quite a, you know, a really strong, powerful outfit down there as well, and getting you just desserts this year.
Yeah, this is going to sound bizarre, really, because when I went into Bedford, they were too nice. The club was too nice. The players were certainly too nice, and you know, I put a lot of pressure on players, and anyone who's played, I put a lot of pressure on players to perform and keep themselves right and keep themselves fit. And the first game against Berkhamsted, my first game was, funnily enough, against Berkhamsted. I think that might have been Chris Devane's first game for Berko as well, or very close to it. I knew he was new in the job, and I didn't know any of the players really. I'd met him on the Saturday, and 60 minutes in, I had about 4 players going down with cramp. And I was looking at Daz, my assistant, going, what's going on here? So, like, we put them straight into a mini pre-season straight away. And some were sinking badly. There was people cheating, and you know, I made 1 or 2 changes within 2 weeks, because I could see that they weren't the type of characters that are wanted in the dressing room. Some of them have been there a while as well, but you have to make these clutch decisions, if you like, when you go somewhere. You have to trust your own instincts. And we just got on a little run that year. I think the 9 games we actually played, we won 6 and drew 3. We brought 1 or 2 in. I brought Charlie in. I brought Danny in. I brought Pedro in. And then we was training throughout. When we was allowed to train, obviously COVID, we was allowed to get him in individually and do bits with him. There was a real desire and hunger to do well. And we come back early pre-season this year, and the lads were fit. And we just wanted to get promoted. We didn't want to, you know, I got rid of a lot of the big players, and we part of company, people like Rob Sinclair, Tom Hitchcock, Matty Harriott. So there was some big players, you know, left the football club, if you like. And we just went really young. We got in Hugh Jones, we got Connor playing in a different position. Obviously Danny, we brought Ozzy in. Obviously we then brought Rory in after we lost 2 of the first 5, because people forget at the start of the season we lost 2 of the first 5. We lost to Dunstable third game 1-0. We lost to Ware at home 3-2. And after Ware, they literally come to Bedford and absolutely bullied us. They bullied us. They battered us. They rolled us over. They beat us up. And I remember saying in the dressing that night, that's never happening again. While I'm here, that's never happening again. And we signed Rory. We made one or two other little changes. And to be fair, when I said we was too nice, I wouldn't expect us to have 2 abandoned games this year and numerous FA disciplinary things. But the lads just play on the front foot. They play on the edge. Even the nice lads in the team, like we are actually a nice bunch. I know people don't think we are, but we are. Even the nice lads play on the front foot, and for that 90 minutes, they're aggressive. And people like obviously Callum, Rory, Pedro, Rene to a point, you know, they demand from our younger players, because although people go, oh, Bedford are this, they've got this budget, we really haven't, because if you look at the squad, we've got like 10 or 11 under 23s in the team, in the squad, which is made up with your Rennies, your Callums, your Rorys, and people like that. But the majority of our squad, we've probably got one of the youngest starting 11s in the league, which no one gives us the credit for. They just, big spend in Bedford, etc., etc. But that's not as much now. We've still got a good budget, don't get me wrong, but that's not the figures I hear anyway, and perhaps what you hear.
I mean, you look at it, you've got 3 games to go as we sit here now. Chat.
4 maybe. Yeah.
3, and we don't know what's going on with the other one. But I mean, the 3 games that you've got literally down here on paper, we've got Dunstable at home, St Neots away, Aylesbury United at home as well. So, you don't need many points to take that spot. But I mean, they're not necessarily the easiest of games on paper, are they?
No, they ain't. But they ain't easy for them either, are they? You know, we're unbeaten. We're unbeaten in 22. We've only lost 1 in 32. I say to our lads, every game we play, whether it's home or away, we're favourites before a ball's kicked. Mm-hmm. So when we go into the Dunstable game on Saturday, I believe we're favourites if the bookies were pricing it up. When we play St Neots, we've beaten 3 times already this season, so I presume we're favourites. And Aylesbury, obviously at home, we've lost 1 game at home all season, so I presume we'd be favourites. So as long as we can keep our feet on the ground, and there's, we're training tomorrow night, and now it's Bank Holiday weekend and stuff, we'll be training tomorrow night. We'll be working hard tomorrow night. We're fully fit. We've only got, obviously, Charlie's now missing, but that's the only one who's going to be missing. And I just fancy us to win games. And obviously, Harlow beat Burko on Saturday anyway, as you well know, because so obviously that'll be 1 less point. But we ain't started. And what I will say, you have got to give a lot of credit to Chris Devan and his team, because they have kept us honest through this running. Whether we win it or whether we don't, or whether they win it, we've kept them honest and they've kept us honest, because both clubs have been relentless compared with the other ones. And for me, I think probably we're one of the best teams in the league. They beat us at our place. They was 2-1 up against us. Obviously, the history will tell you that them 2 late goals we got. But I think on their day, they're probably the ones who, when the season's all done and dusted, the silly points they've dropped. I don't think we've dropped any points against anyone in the bottom 7. Whereas I think sides like Ware have dropped points here, there, and
Ware manager I speak to every week. I do with him every week, and I dare say he'll want you to win both games over the Easter bank holiday to help him out. But it's quite funny how you look at certain sides, and 2 that just come to mind straight away are the likes of Hastings in the Isthmian, and also Worthing in the Isthmian as well, where for the 2 years over COVID, it was them 2 and Ware that really deserved to get promoted out of that. So you're sitting there, with a little bit of it, as you were talking about Ware there, you're just hoping that they maybe can snatch it through the playoffs. But then again, when you're in the
I think they will. I think if they get 3rd place, which they can, I think that they'll definitely win at home against anybody. And then I just think they've got a lot of the team's measures. I think on a one-off game, I wouldn't like to play them in the play. If there's one team that I had to play in a playoff final, that would probably be not them, if I'm being honest. I really like the look of Northley when we played them a couple of weeks ago, but then they went and got stuffed 3-0 by Hertford, which Hertford can do that to anybody. I'm not sure how many big games Burko won this year. I know they beat us, but I've watched them recently, and when we played them, I felt they was lacking. I don't know what, because obviously the results will say you're different, but they didn't wow me in any way, shape or form. I just felt that the big game got the better of them when they played us, certainly at ours. And the other night at Welland, when I went and watched, I didn't think they really had a go. But we went to Welland Saturday, we're down to 10 men. We leave 2 up front, we're still having a go. I didn't see that from them on the night. And I just think, for me, obviously as an outsider, when we've had a few injuries, we've not gone out and got anybody and caused ourselves problems later on. I think we've only used 20 or 21 players all year in the league campaign, where I think if you look at some of the other teams around the top, as soon as they lose, they panic and they buy someone, they get someone, then all of a sudden everyone's fit and they don't know what the best team is. And I think that's Burko have probably fell into that bracket a little bit this year, although they're still in there, have a chance of winning the league.
And it's quite funny how it's panned out. And Steve knows, of course, we just said about you've got, the teams you've got, they've got Harlow's, you've said, on Saturday, then they've got Aylesbury, and then they've got St Neots. So St Neots could have a lot to say, and for themselves as well. But for me, Gary, we wish you all the very, very best.
Thank you.
It's been your club's been fantastic this year. Definitely, from what I've seen, one of the best sides, and if not the best side in the league this year, and deserve to go up. So wish you all the very best over the Easter weekend and so forth. And a massive thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no
I really learned a lot, and I'm really starting to enjoy these chats, and hopefully Steve's the same. Really starting to enjoy those. But from me and Steve, a massive thank you, as we said, to Gary. And me and Steve will be back with more. We've even got the man himself, Mr. Mark Halsey, Paul Halsey's brother, of course, ex-Premier League referee, coming up in the next couple of episodes of My Life in Football as well. So, but until the next time, from me, from Steve, and a massive thank you to Gary. Thank you for watching, and good night.
Thank you.